My daughter's 2008 Honda CRV suffered power loss, like acceleration loss, almost overnight, according to her. It happened very rapidly to the point I took it out. It took me about 21 seconds to go 0 to 60 on the freeway, which is frighteningly slow if you're trying to merge with traffic. So anyway, long story short, we took it to a shop and they diagnosed. Now it had no warning lights, no OBD2 error codes, nothing. But the shop diagnosed that the catalytic converter had broken up inside and was blocking the exhaust and causing the power loss. The first estimate they gave me was for $3,000. We live in California, so it's super expensive out here for catalytic converters. They must have heard my jaw dropping because they called back in about 20 minutes and gave me another quote. They said they found an aftermarket one. They could do it for $1,800. So I looked it up online. I found a company where I could get one. It was normally like $900. It had MagnaFlow internals, so it seemed reliable. They had a 20% off coupon, so I got it for about $700. So this video will show the removal and installation of the catalytic converter. Also to point out, my daughter's Honda CRV had about 160,000 miles on it, and from what I read, I guess it's not unusual for cats to only last, 10 years or somewhere around that mileage. I built these little ramps when I decided I wanted to do my own oil changes and save a little money. These actually worked out great for oil changes. It's not very high. I probably should have put this up on jack stands, but I do have enough room under there. Now we're going to go down under the front of the car where the catalytic converter attaches to the exhaust header. There's 2 bolts. They're called spring bolts. We're going to go down there and try to remove those. So just so you can kind of see where we are, there's the oil filter. And then there's the end of the cat attaching to the exhaust manifold, and you can see there the spring bolts. Now this one right there is fairly easy to reach. I can get it just fine. This other one looked impossible to reach until I realized there is a access hole. I think that's it right there, that the socket wrench will go right up and through. Long extension on your ratchet set there like this, and then I'm just going up through the hole there. Okay, so it just took a little bit of a pressure to crack, but I got this loose, and now it's going to come off, which is nice. And once you get it to a certain point, then you can just do it kind of by hand and it will drop right out. So here's the second one. Doing this one-handed, just trying to break the... All right, that's going to take 2 hands. I don't know if you can see that, but there. That's all it took. So this is where you get to learn from my mistakes. Yeah, I should have just grabbed impact wrench in the first place. So if you have one of these or anything like that, it'll probably just take these things right out real quick. Let's give that a try. So that was a fail. I guess my little impact wrench still can't overcome the tightness of this bolt. And now it seems to be stuck for some reason. I couldn't get that one off there on the left. Even though I got it cracked loose, it was really stuck there. So as you can see, I used a bunch of penetrating oil on it. Then it was finally able to come loose, and I did get it off after a little bit of effort with the impact wrench. So again, lesson learned from me here. Go ahead and put some penetrating oil on each of those, before you even try to remove them. It'll make it a lot easier. So I already had this much apart when I decided to start filming this. What's on the ground there, those are the heat shields. You can see those tabs sticking out of the catalytic converter. But those are where this bolted on. That came off pretty easy, except for one of the ones was hard to get to, and I had to get a socket that was just the perfect length to reach up in there and get that. I'll show you that in a little bit, but it's just my extension was too long, my socket was too short, so I had to get a kind of a little bit extended length socket to reach up in there and get that last bolt off of there. This is the thing that did the trick. It's a 10 millimeter, but it's, you know, it's a long one, a little bit extended. You can see the O2 sensor is hanging there, and under there is another sensor. I forget the difference, but both of those have to come out. There's a special tool to do that for the one, because it sticks, the O2 sensor sticks in through this hole right there. So it was a little tricky to get out, but what I did was I loosened, I pretty much loosened the heat shield so I had some space, and I think I took a crescent wrench and went up in there, or even the channel locks or something like that, and was able to loosen it. And you just have to loosen it a little bit, and then the whole thing will unscrew. Just be careful unscrewing it that you don't put too much strain on the wires, because they actually have to twist as you're unscrewing it. Now, I already have two of these bolts off, so you can see I hit this with penetrating oil. I actually let this kind of soak for hours because they weren't budging. And the one on the other side is off, and the bottom one is off. The top one still wouldn't budge. So I hit it with some more oil and let it set overnight. That is going nowhere fast. Woo, nothing. And there it goes. Boom, just like that. Yep, just like that. Bam. So the vibration from the impact really helped knock that thing loose. I can get this out. Wow, that was easy so far. This way, and bam. That is what I'm talking about. Getting that thing out finally. Take a look at it. Well, here it is. So it's out, and I'm going to show you something, what it sounds like when I shake it. So listen to this. I can feel feel parts moving around in there, rattling, shaking. I think that's probably bad. So that's why we're going to put a new one in. The FedEx guy just came by with my new catalytic converter. So let's take a look. The first thing you're going to notice, that I noticed anyway, is that the new converter does not have a heat shield. And you can see this is the heat shield here that wrapped around the old one there. So that was a concern to me. I called the company Hot Exhaust, and they explained to me that the new aftermarket converters, at least this one from MagnaFlow, is a spun body converter. In short, the theory is that the heat shield is built into it. It's all kind of one piece, as you can see, and that I guess it doesn't need a heat shield. So I'll see when I get this installed how hot it gets, and if it's going to be, you know, okay like they say it should be. The other thing I noticed is that the numbers on it, you know, didn't match up with any numbers I had on my car. Numbers under the hood of my CRV. There's some information there that does kind of talk about the emission requirements, but it didn't match to any numbers on the new catalytic converter. So I did a little research and found out that the number, there's a cross-reference, and I'll provide the links to the website, but there is a cross-reference that shows that the number on my new catalytic converter is CARB approved, which means California approved, so it should be good to go. So here's the other new stuff I ordered, or that came with my catalytic converter. This gasket set here with the new screws, I think that just came with the converter, which is great. And then I ordered this separately. I think it was like, I don't know, $7-10 or something like that. That's the new, I probably could have reused my old ones, but these are new spring bolts for the front. So the other interesting part is when I called the guy at Hot Exhaust to ask about what came with this, he told me that it did not come, I believe it was with the front washer. He said it came with the rear gasket but not the front one. But this is the front one, so it did come with it, which is actually great news. I was kind of concerned as to whether or not I was going to have to hunt something like that down. So this is great. It came with both the front and rear gaskets. So as you can see, you know, the front one is going to fit right in there before I put it on, and that's necessary to get a good seal. And then of course, you know, the back one's going to fit right there. It's a little bit different than the factory one, and I'll show you that. The factory one had a recess, and it had a more of a ring-like gasket that fit in there. So the new one is a little bit different, but should work out fine. And then finally, the old one had these studs that are kind of seated into here. These can be removed. I saw in a different video, if you stick this in a vise and use like a small sledgehammer, you can just pound on that and these will pop out, and you could theoretically use these again. But since my new one came with a bolt set, I'm of course just going to use those brand new bolts because they are all there and ready to go. So here's my plan of attack. Got all my parts out of the bags, put them in my little bin to drag under the car with me. I am going to use some anti-seize on the threads of the bolts, just so they will hopefully never rust shut again. So before I made this up, I've kind of stuck this in here. It's kind of supported. I'm going to just inspect and clean off the flange here to make sure it's nice and clean for the new gasket. This is just temporary to support this end while I bolt up the front end. I'm going to leave that loose so I got some flex in there. Okay, putting the new washer in there. Grabbing spring bolt. I left the old bolts on the, whatever you call it there, on the flange up there. I didn't want to, they're stuck and I think they're fine, so I didn't want to try to remove the new ones. And then I just discovered that the new spring bolts are not 12 millimeter or whatever the old ones were. So I got my anti-seize on here, maybe a little too much. So now that I got that on, I'm going to take this one back off and put my anti-seize on it like I didn't do before. The washer out of the way. Want to dab on there. I don't think this is ever going to have to be done again on this car. It's got 160,000 miles on it, so this should be the last catalytic it's ever going to need. But since you never know, just do that for the next guy, if there is a next guy. Well, I came back over here and I got these two guys as tight as I could there. I'm hoping there's a good seal there. It's a little strange because that doesn't actually butt up all the way against it, but I guess the that big gasket in there is going to make the seal. So I'm going to give that a shot. So putting that last screw through there was really difficult. It just wouldn't seem to go through. And then the only thing that made it work finally is I actually, even though there's no nut on the other side, I had to screw it through. I think it was catching on the gasket there in the middle with the thread. So I just had to kind of, with my fingers, screw it through, and it finally came out the other side. So for the final step in tightening those up, you got to hold one end with a open end wrench or a crescent end wrench, and then put the socket on the other one and tighten that up real snug. Now I'm going to put my O2 sensors back in. Don't forget that step. I'm going to use a little bit of anti-seize on those as well. So as I do this, I'm going to pre-twist it so the wires get twisted a little bit one way. That way when I put it in, it'll have some more room for the wires to, untwist as I'm tightening it. Pretty good, and this is actually a lot easier since it doesn't have the heat shield. I don't have to worry about having a special tool for it. I can just use an open end wrench or my crescent wrench. When I took this off, I popped these out of these little clips here, popped the wire out of the clips, so be sure to pop those back in just to hold the wires out of the way of everything. This one I think I can do by feel, pop. So I'm happy to report, I didn't take a video of it, but got the car back together. Everything worked great, no exhaust leaks. Car worked great, all the power was back, so the replacement of that cat was a success. I hope you have good luck with your project.